Welcome back to the channel The Coin Empire. Today we are diving into one of the most shocking and unbelievable stories in modern coin collecting, the mysterious and potentially life-changing 2006 P5-cent coin that some experts and collectors believe could be worth an astonishing $94 million because of rare errors, minting mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that make it one of the most talked about modern nickels ever imagined. And if you have ever ignored the small change in your pocket or tossed a nickel aside without a second thought, this story might completely change how you look at your coins forever, because the 2006 P5-cent coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint, part of the long-running Jefferson Nickels series first introduced in 1938, carries the iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his historic home Monticello on the reverse. And while millions of these coins were produced for circulation, it only takes one dramatic minting mistake, one unexpected error, or one extraordinary production anomaly to transform an ordinary 5-cent piece into a numismatic legend worth millions upon millions of dollars. And what makes the 2006 P nickel such an intriguing candidate for massive value is the combination of modern minting technology and the rare possibility of catastrophic production errors that slip through quality control at the United States Mint. Because even in the modern era where lasers, computerized presses, and digital die monitoring systems are used, mistakes can and do happen, and when they happen in ways that are unique, dramatic, and nearly impossible to replicate, collectors around the world become obsessed with finding them, especially when the error involves a major off-metal strike, a double denomination, a wrong planchet error, a dramatic double die, or a mule pairing that was never meant to exist. And imagine for a moment that a 2006 P nickel was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, perhaps a dime planchet with its smaller diameter and different metallic composition, or even more dramatically on a 1-cent copper-plated zinc planchet, instantly creating a visual and metallurgical mismatch that would shock even experienced numismatists. And if such a coin were discovered in pristine, uncirculated condition with full mint luster and authenticated by top grading services, its uniqueness alone could push its value into the tens of millions, because collectors pay extraordinary premiums for coins that represent one-of-a-kind mint mistakes, and then consider the possibility of a double denomination strike where a previously struck coin, such as a state quarter or even a Sacagawea dollar, somehow re-entered the coining press and received a full or partial strike from the Jefferson nickel dies dated 2006 with the Philadelphia Mint mark, creating an overlapping design where Jefferson's portrait appears layered over another denomination's imagery, producing a dramatic and unmistakable error that could never legally be reproduced. And if that coin were verified as genuine and confirmed to have escaped the mint facility, the rarity and story behind it would electrify the collecting community, pushing competitive bidders at major auctions to extraordinary heights. Especially if it were featured by a prestigious auction house and marketed as a once-in-a-lifetime modern-era discovery. And we also cannot ignore the power of die errors such as a severe double die verse where Jefferson's eye, nose, lips, and the lettering of Liberty and I in God We Trust show dramatic separation visible even to the naked eye. Because while minor doubling is relatively common, a bold and unmistakable hub doubling on a modern coin would be exceptionally rare due to improved die manufacturing processes, and that rarity factor is exactly what fuels massive price speculation. And imagine if the doubling were so strong that it rivaled the famous 1955 double die cent in visual impact, but appearing instead on a 2006 P nickel, instantly turning a modern coin into a headline-grabbing rarity. And beyond doubling, there is the possibility of a brockage error where one side of the coin shows a normal design while the other side displays a mirrored incuse impression caused by another coin stuck to the die, and full brockages are already rare. But a full brockage in near-perfect condition on a 2006 P5-cent coin would be considered a spectacular mint mistake, and collectors of error coins are known to pay staggering amounts for dramatic brockages, especially when the design is fully visible and sharply detailed. And then there are off-center strikes where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent of planchet visible, and while minor off-center errors are relatively affordable, a perfectly balanced 50% off-center strike with a full visible date of 2006 and a clear P mint mark would be a highly desirable piece, and if combined with another error such as a clipped planchet or lamination flaw, the uniqueness multiplies, and lamination errors themselves occur when impurities or structural weaknesses in the metal cause the surface to peel or split during striking, creating a dramatic torn metal effect that collectors find fascinating, and a large, visually stunning lamination fold across Jefferson's portrait could turn a simple nickel into a conversation piece worth thousands, or more depending on severity. And if the coin also happened to be struck on an experimental alloy planchet, perhaps from test materials evaluated by the Mint during mid-2000s research into alternative metals due to rising nickel prices, then the story becomes even more explosive, because experimental planchets that escaped into circulation are among the rarest Mint errors imaginable. Often known only through insider documentation or accidental release, and such a discovery would require metallurgical testing to confirm unusual composition, and once verified, the numismatic world would erupt with excitement, pushing valuations into the realm of imagination, and part of what drives the hypothetical $94 million figure is not only the technical rarity but the narrative power behind such a coin, because collectors do not simply buy metal, they buy stories, they buy uniqueness. They buy the thrill of owning something that no one else can ever possess, and when a coin combines multiple major errors, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, featuring a double die, and displaying a partial blockage all at once, the probability becomes astronomically low, and astronomically low probability translates into astronomical value when the right collectors compete for ownership, and condition is another key factor because a coin graded at the highest mint state levels, free of wear and preserving full original luster, commands exponentially higher prices than a circulated example, and if the 2006 P5-cent error were preserved carefully from the moment of release, perhaps stored unknowingly in a collection jar or bankroll until discovered years later, its pristine state would only amplify its desirability, and the Philadelphia Mint Mark P itself adds context. As the Philadelphia Mint has a long history dating back to 1792 and has produced countless rarities over the centuries, and modern Philadelphia issues occasionally produce remarkable errors despite high production standards. And collectors pay close attention to mint marks because certain mints may have had different production quirks or die setups during specific years, and the year 2006 sits within a period of heavy nickel production following the westward journey nickel redesigns of 2004 and 2005, meaning new dies, new processes, and potential transitional anomalies could have occurred during that era. And transitional errors where an outdated reverse or obverse die was accidentally paired with a newer design are among the most fascinating in numismatics, and if a 2006 P nickel were found bearing design elements from the earlier westward journey series unexpectedly, it would represent a mule error, and mule errors where two dies never intended to be used together create coins of extreme rarity and value. And history shows that even modern mule errors can sell for 6 or 7 figures under the right circumstances. So imagining a one-of-a-kind 2006 P nickel mule is not far-fetched in the world of high-end collecting. And then there is the phenomenon of die caps where a coin sticks to the die and continues striking additional planchets, gradually forming a bottle cap shape with distorted expanding metal, and a dramatic die cap nickel dated 2006 with clear identifying features would be a museum-level piece, and if uniquely preserved with documentation tracing its discovery, it could become the centerpiece of an elite collection, and provenance plays a massive role in value because if the coin were discovered by a respected collector or featured in a major publication, its legitimacy and fame would grow, driving even higher bidding wars, and when wealthy collectors compete, especially those building registry sets or aiming to own the most spectacular era coins ever known, prices can escalate far beyond rational metal value. And media attention further fuels demand because headlines about a 5-cent coin worth $94 million capture public imagination, drawing new investors into the hobby, increasing overall interest, and magnifying the mystique of the piece. And it is important to understand that such extreme valuations usually depend on the coin being absolutely unique. Next 2003 P5-cent coin. Today we are uncovering an absolutely mind-blowing story that could change the way you look at every single nickel in your pocket, because we are talking about the 2003 P5-cent coin that some collectors believe could be worth as much as $90 million due to extraordinary mint errors, rare production mistakes, and unbelievable possibilities that transform an ordinary piece of change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And before you dismiss this as impossible, remember that history has shown us again and again that tiny details, unnoticed flaws, and rare minting accidents can turn everyday coins into legendary collectibles, and the 2003 P. Jefferson Nickels struck at the historic Philadelphia Mint carries the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the iconic image of Monticello on the reverse, a design that has been part of American coinage since 1938. But what makes this specific year and mint mark so fascinating is the potential for dramatic errors that could have slipped past even the most advanced quality control systems, because even in the modern era with digital die preparation, laser alignment, and automated inspection processes, the United States Mint still operates massive high-speed presses striking hundreds of coins per minute, and when that kind of volume meets metal, pressure, and human oversight, the door to rare and spectacular mistakes is never fully closed, and one of the most valuable possibilities for a 2003 P nickel reaching a staggering $90 million valuation would be a unique wrong planchet strike where the nickel was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a 2003 P nickel design stamped onto a silver dime planchet with its smaller diameter and lighter weight, creating a coin with incomplete design elements squeezed onto a thinner blank. Or even more dramatically struck on a copper-plated zinc cent planchet, producing a distinct color difference that would instantly alert experts to something extraordinary. And if laboratory testing confirmed a metallurgical mismatch combined with die alignment consistent with official mint equipment, such a coin would become a headline rarity overnight, and collectors around the world would compete fiercely for ownership, pushing bids into unimaginable territory because wrong planchet errors are among the most exciting discoveries in modern numismatics. And then consider the possibility of a double denomination strike where a previously struck coin such as a state quarter re-entered the coining chamber and was struck again with 2003 P nickel dies, resulting in overlapping designs where Jefferson's portrait appears layered across elements of another denomination, creating a surreal and unmistakable mint blunder that could never be intentionally recreated. And when errors are both dramatic and visually obvious, they capture attention not just from collectors but from mainstream media, increasing demand and perceived importance. And beyond planchet errors, there is the thrilling possibility of a major double die obverse in which the hubbing process that transfers the design onto the die produced a significant misalignment, causing noticeable doubling in Jefferson's eye, nose, mouth, and the inscriptions such as "I in God we trust" and "Liberty." And while minor machine doubling is common and typically adds little value, a true hub double die with strong separation visible without magnification would be extremely rare for a 2003 issue due to modern die-making improvements, and rarity combined with dramatic eye appeal is a formula for explosive prices, especially if the coin remained in mint state condition free from wear. And imagine if only one example were ever confirmed, turning it into a unique treasure that registry-set collectors and high-net-worth numismatists would battle over at auction. And blockage errors also present an incredible opportunity for extreme value, because when a struck coin sticks to one die and impresses its mirror image into the next planchet, the result is a coin with one normal side and one deeply incused mirrored design, and a full blockage 2003 P nickel with crisp details would already command a strong premium. But if it were paired with another anomaly such as an off-metal composition or a die rotation far beyond normal tolerances, its uniqueness could skyrocket. And speaking of die rotation, rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned significantly beyond the expected 180-degree orientation create coins that feel unusual immediately when flipped in hand. And while small rotations are collectible, a dramatic rotation approaching 90 degrees or more on a 2003 P nickel in flawless condition would be an impressive find. And if such a rotation occurred alongside a clipped planchet where a curved section of the coin is missing due to improper blanking, the layered rarity would compound the value exponentially. And Lamination errors offer another fascinating dimension because the metal strip from which planchets are punched can occasionally contain impurities or structural weaknesses, leading to peeling or splitting surfaces during striking, and a severe lamination crack running across Jefferson's portrait or through Monticello's columns would create a dramatic visual effect that error collectors adore. And if preserved in uncirculated state with sharp luster shimmering around the flaw, the aesthetic appeal could drive demand far beyond typical error values. And another astonishing possibility involves mule errors where two dies never intended to be paired are accidentally used together. Imagine a 2003 P-nickel obverse combined with a reverse die from a different year or even from the experimental Westward Journey series that began shortly after, creating a hybrid coin that defies catalog listings and challenges experts to explain its origin. And true mule errors are among the rarest modern mint mistakes, often resulting from human error during die installation, and when discovered they can command enormous prices due to their near impossibility. And beyond mules there is the captivating concept of a die cap error where a coin remains stuck on the die and repeatedly strikes new planchets, gradually forming a cap-like shape with distorted, stretched metal and ghostly overlapping impressions. And a well-formed die cap dated 2003 with the P mint mark clearly visible would be a museum caliber piece, and if uniquely dramatic and singular, it could anchor an elite era collection, and collectors at the highest level do not simply buy coins, they acquire legends, stories, and irreplaceable artifacts of mint history, and that narrative element plays a crucial role in pushing hypothetical valuations toward the $90 million mark because the more extraordinary the backstory, the more prestige attached to ownership, and imagine the coin being featured in major numismatic publications, displayed at conventions, authenticated by top grading services, and discussed endlessly in forums and auctions, each layer of publicity amplifying its mystique and desirability, and condition remains one of the most decisive factors in determining value because a coin graded at the top of the mint state scale with flawless surfaces, full strike details, and brilliant original luster can be worth multiples of a lower grade example. And if the 2003 P-nickel error survived untouched in a sealed bankroll or forgotten jar until its discovery, its pristine preservation would dramatically enhance its appeal. And then there is the possibility of experimental alloy planchets being tested by the mint around the early 2000s due to fluctuations in metal prices. And while such test pieces are usually controlled and destroyed, history shows that occasionally unusual compositions escape into circulation. And a 2003 P-nickel struck on a prototype alloy significantly different from the standard copper-nickel blend would require precise metallurgical analysis to confirm, but once authenticated it would represent an incredible piece of mint experimentation history, and the combination of experimental composition and visible striking error would make it virtually priceless in the eyes of specialized collectors. And let us not overlook strike-through errors where debris such as cloth fibers, metal shavings, or hardened grease interfered with the strike, leaving missing letters, textured surfaces, or ghostly impressions embedded into the coin's design. And while small strike-throughs are common, a large and dramatic one affecting key elements like Jefferson's face or the Monticello building could be visually stunning and highly desirable, especially if the error is permanent and not the result of post-mint damage. And authentication is absolutely critical in separating true mint errors from alterations or damage because experts use magnification, weight measurements, die alignment studies, and comparison to known minting processes to determine legitimacy. And once a coin is certified by a respected grading authority as a genuine mint error of unprecedented scale, the market responds swiftly. And in the rare event that only a single example is confirmed worldwide, collectors with vast resources may engage in intense bidding wars, driving the price beyond logical expectations and into record-setting territory. And part of the fascination with the 2003 P-nickel, potentially worth $90 million, lies in the psychology of collecting where rarity, exclusivity. Last 1987 P5-cent coin. Today we are diving into an unbelievable and thrilling story that could completely transform the way you see the humble nickel in your pocket because we are talking about the 1987 P5-cent coin that some collectors believe could reach an astonishing value of $88 million due to extraordinary mint errors, rare production mistakes, and unique possibilities that turn an ordinary coin into a legendary treasure. And before you think that a 5-cent coin from the 1980s could never hold that kind of value, remember that throughout numismatic history it has always been the unexpected combinations of rarity, condition, and dramatic minting flaws that create record-breaking coins, and the 1987 P. Jefferson nickel, struck at the historic Philadelphia Mint, carries the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the classic Monticello building on the reverse. A design that had been in continuous use for decades by that time, yet even with such a well-established design and improved minting technology in the late 20th century, errors still occurred, and when those errors are severe, unique, and verified beyond doubt, they can elevate a simple nickel into a coin of unimaginable value, and one of the most exciting possibilities that could push a 1987 P nickel toward that $88 million mark would be a spectacular wrong planchet strike, where the coin was accidentally struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination, such as a copper cent planchet, or even more dramatically on a silver dime planchet, instantly creating a mismatch in diameter, thickness, and metallic composition that would be obvious to experts. And if such a coin were discovered in pristine mint state condition with no signs of post-mint alteration, authenticated by leading grading services, and proven through metallurgical testing to have the wrong alloy, it would become one of the most important modern-era wrong planchet errors ever found, and collectors at the highest level would recognize that they were looking at a once-in-a-generation discovery. And beyond wrong planchets there is the captivating possibility of a double denomination error where a previously struck coin re-entered the press and received a full or partial strike from the 1987 P nickel dies, resulting in overlapping images that clearly show elements of two different denominations combined into one impossible creation, and double denomination errors are among the most dramatic mint mistakes because they cannot be faked easily and they display unmistakable characteristics of official mint equipment. And if the 1987 P example were bold and visually striking with both designs clearly identifiable, its uniqueness alone could push bidding to extraordinary heights. And we must also consider the possibility of a major double die obverse created during the hubbing process when the design was transferred onto the die, because if there were a significant misalignment between hub impressions, the result would be strong doubling visible on Jefferson's profile and the surrounding inscriptions such as "I in God we trust" and "Liberty." And while minor machine doubling is common and not highly valuable, a true hub double die with clear separation lines and depth would be a rare event for 1987, and if only one or a few examples surfaced, the numismatic world would respond with intense excitement, especially if the coin remained in flawless uncirculated condition preserving full mint luster. And then there are blockage errors where a struck coin adheres to the die and imprints its mirrored image onto the next planchet, creating a coin with one normal side and one deeply incused mirrored design. And full blockage nickels from the 1980s are not common, but if a perfectly centered, fully detailed blockage 1987 P nickel were discovered in high grade, it would command serious attention. And if combined with another error such as an off-center strike or clipped planchet, the compounded rarity would multiply its desirability dramatically. And off-center strikes themselves are fascinating because they occur when the planchet is not properly seated in the collar during striking, resulting in part of the design missing and a blank crescent visible. And while small off-center errors may bring modest premiums, a dramatic 50% off-center strike with the full 1987 date and P mint mark clearly visible would be a spectacular showpiece, especially if the strike were sharp and the surface is free from damage. And clipped planchets occur when the blanking press misfeeds the metal strip, causing part of the coin to be missing in a curved or straight-edge clip. And when a clip is large and accompanied by the distinctive Blakesley effect showing weakness opposite the clip, collectors recognize it as a genuine mint error. And if a 1987 P nickel displayed multiple clips or a particularly dramatic one alongside another anomaly, its uniqueness would intensify, and lamination errors add yet another layer of possibility because impurities or rolling defects in the metal strip can cause sections of the coin to peel or split during striking, and a severe lamination crack running across Jefferson's face or through the Monticello columns would create a striking visual that error collectors treasure, especially if the peeling metal remains attached and undamaged. And die rotation errors also capture attention because standard coin alignment for US coins is 180 degrees, and when the reverse is rotated significantly off axis relative to the obverse, it signals a setup mistake during die installation, and while minor rotations exist, a dramatic rotation approaching 90 degrees or more on a high-grade 1987p nickel would stand out immediately to collectors. And the possibility of a mule error where two dies never meant to be paired were accidentally used together is another extraordinary scenario. Imagine a 1987p obverse paired with a reverse from a different year or experimental design, creating a hybrid coin that defies catalog classification, and true mule errors are among the rarest modern mint mistakes because they require human oversight failures during die changes. And when such coins are authenticated, they often achieve remarkable auction results due to their extreme rarity. And we can also imagine the dramatic formation of a die cap error where a coin sticks to the die and continues striking additional planchets, gradually expanding into a cap shape with distorted and stretched metal. And if the 1987p nickel example were clearly identifiable with readable date and mint mark despite the distortion, it would be a museum-worthy artifact of mint mechanics. And experimental alloy planchets represent another intriguing avenue because fluctuations in metal prices during the 1980s occasionally prompted internal testing of alternative compositions. And while most experimental pieces were never released, history shows that rare examples sometimes escape into circulation, and a 1987p nickel struck on an undocumented alloy with weight and metallic properties outside standard specifications would require laboratory confirmation. But once proven genuine, it would become a sensational discovery bridging the gap between mint experimentation and circulating coinage. And strike through errors add further excitement because debris such as cloth fibers, grease, or metal fragments trapped between die and planchet can leave unusual textures, missing letters, or ghostly impressions on the coin's surface. And while small strike-throughs are common, a large and dramatic strike-through affecting key design elements while preserving the date would be highly collectible. And the true path to an $88 million valuation would require a convergence of multiple extraordinary factors, including a unique combination of errors never before seen together on a Jefferson nickel, flawless preservation in mint state condition, certification by a respected grading authority confirming authenticity, and intense competition among wealthy collectors eager to own the most remarkable modern nickel ever discovered. And psychology plays a powerful role in such valuations because collectors at the highest level seek items that secure their legacy within the hobby. And owning the most valuable 1987p nickel would guarantee recognition in numismatic history, and media coverage amplifying the story would attract investors and enthusiasts alike, further driving demand, and provenance would also enhance value because if the coin were discovered in a sealed bankroll or traced back to an original mint bag, its documented journey from production to discovery would add credibility and intrigue. And the Philadelphia Mint itself, with its long history dating back to the founding of the nation, has produced countless legendary coins, both intentional and accidental, and every coin bearing the P Mint mark carries that heritage. And while millions of 1987p nickels circulate as ordinary 5-cent pieces worth face value, the mere possibility that one extraordinary specimen exists keeps collectors searching tirelessly through rolls and pocket change, examining every detail under magnification and weighing coins to detect anomalies. Because all it takes is one spectacular mistake to turn common currency into a fortune, and stories like this fuel our passion here on the Coin Empire, reminding us that numismatics is a world where precision meets imperfection, and where even small errors can create immense value.